Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Brian Regienczuk. He's the CEO at Agency Spotter. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing at Agency Spotter is very much needed, but maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. Yeah, we moved around a bit when I was younger,
Okay.
but I would say Iowa is my
Okay, very
point
cool.
of origin. Yeah, Davenport.
Okay, so you went to university. What did you take and why?
That's a great one. I actually entered university thinking maybe biomedical engineering.
Okay, what made you want to take
go
that?
route.
Was there like a defining moment or a few things?
You know, I think I didn't have a great experience with calculus.
Okay. Me either.
And I think that was one of the defining moments where I pivoted early on, and I ended up studying psychology, and I had minors in business and English lit.
Okay.
And
cool.
at the same time was teaching myself to code, and it's a bit of a little geeky and into the creative, like arts and design already.
Very
I
cool.
was the editor of the Literary and Art magazine at the time, and yeah, I taught myself to code, and that's really practiced it at the end of college.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get out of university. Walk me through your career up until Agency Spotter.
I did a lot of freelance initially out of college. I took a month off and backpacked across Europe.
Nice.
I have some relatives over there still, and love to see them. But in terms of career-wise, it was some freelancing, doing website design early. This is before the .com boom of bust of 2000.
Right.
And so pretty early days in terms of the web and technology, but helped on that front a number of small businesses, a local university, and then moved back to Atlanta, and really grew my career from there. I worked at a company that's now owned by Cisco. It used to be called Scientific Atlanta.
Nice.
Worked at WebMD, worked at a startup that was helping create digital sites and digital marketing in the early days for mid-tier banks and financial institutions.
Okay.
Had a really interesting time there, leading a team. My first experience really leading a small team of both on the design front and the development front.
Okay.
And
cool.
from there, I went to work at Philips, part of Philips, used to be Philips Electronics, now they're into healthcare lighting, a ton of stuff. But I worked for Philips Design, and that was really one of my longest stints at a company where I was able to spread my wings, work across many of the different business lines that Philips had, and lead teams and manage different large programs, bigger budgets, and do a lot of innovation as well. So I was able to try a lot of different things out and get exposed to everything from consulting for General Motors on the future of the automobile,
very cool,
to helping Philips Healthcare launch their biggest medical healthcare show at RSNA in Chicago.
Very cool.
And finding ways to attract decision makers at hospitals and other, big imaging centers and stuff like that buy a lot of equipment, find ways to kind of push the boundaries and really engage them in really like a trade show environment. So like really wide spectrum of exposure there. After that, I went to Coke. Coca-Cola was awesome.
Sure.
And
I've heard great things.
But I worked really, really hard. And the team there that I was in, I was a group director of global design at Coca-Cola, working on brands like Minute Maid, Sprite, Vitamin Water,
Very cool.
and helped work across design around the globe. So helping coordinate different stakeholders and initiatives. But it was quite the slog. We did a lot of work in a short amount of time. And after that, I just decided it was time. I needed to work. I like working hard.
Sure.
I'm a bit of a workaholic.
Okay.
But I decided it was time to really work hard for myself. And that's when I kind of jumped ship. And with the idea behind Agency Spotter, I consulted for about a year and a half, banked the money, and rolled it in to help found Agency Spotter at the time.
Okay, so what exactly is Agency Spotter, and how did you come up with the idea?
So while I was at Coke, and even before that at Philips, I would get asked, what agency should I use? What design firm should I use?
Interesting.
And I got asked that more and more as I kind of rose up through the ranks. And at Coke, being a group director, I got asked it all the time. 2 weeks didn't go by and somebody didn't ask me or email me or want help trying to figure out, navigating that landscape. And I quickly realized that, Coke, even Coke, is a big company, a company that's known for like having really good marketing prowess, and they didn't have a way to search the agencies.
Interesting.
Outside of procurement, where you get a name on a spreadsheet, and I mean, most marketers are not going to trust a name on a spreadsheet that someone else put there.
Interesting.
So
sure.
There's no context, right?
Yeah.
And so that was fascinating to me, but also really frustrating. And I started to ask a lot of different questions of people both inside of the company, other people I knew at other big brands, and I realized it was a common problem. All these people had no way to navigate the agency space internally, and so they kept just adding more and more suppliers or vendors, whatever you want to call the agencies, helping them. And it kind of was out of control. Coke at the time had over 3,500 agencies around the world.
Oh wow!
And no way to figure out who's doing good work or bad work, or who's even still working, doing any work really with the company. So that was a bit of a problem. And I started talking to smaller, medium-sized companies too, and I realized they have the same problem. When they go to look for a new part, they're like, they ask their network, but their network was not really responding. People are getting inundated, just like I was, with, hey, who should I use questions. And really, without knowing what you need, the landscape had gotten too complex to just say, oh, you should use these guys.
Sure.
Back in the day when there were fewer agencies, fine. But, the landscape, at the time and now is, in the U.S. alone, there's somewhere between 80 and 100,000 agencies.
Wow.
Right? That's, huge numbers. And the nuances that digital and experiential and all these other shopper marketplace, other niche services have brought to the marketplace.
Yeah.
It made it really hard for your network to help you. So people started saying, well, what I'm doing is just banging my head against Google. I'm Googling for an agency.
Yeah.
Because I can't figure it out any other way. And that was happening at the biggest companies down to, smaller brands who needed their first agency. And so Agency Spotter really was born out of my own experience and that of people I knew and the research we did to try and solve how do you connect decision makers who have budget with agencies and design firms who want to help them, solve problems and do better, campaigns.
No, it makes total sense to me. I know, like, the crazy thing about it is there's been kind of a boom in the last decade or so in the space, maybe even longer than that. The thing that's really, really challenging, and you touched on it, is finding the right one for your needs, right? Because so much of this stuff nowadays has been completely automated for 10, 20, 50, couple $100 a month. But the problem with that, and I don't even mean it mean, is that works great for a certain percentage of your business, but there is still a lot of custom stuff that companies need to stand and be different from their competitors, and even just make themselves look like an innovative company. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think now just every industry has grown up and started to get saturated. Not everyone, but a lot of the more traditional ones, like automotive, right?
Yeah.
You get these mailers, you go to a website, they all look the same, right? What's different? They all say they have amazing customer service, but what's really different about it, right?
Yep.
And there's very few of them who are differentiating themselves and, really delivering on what they promise, whether it's higher touch, more luxury, whatever it is. As an example, like, I think that's true in many, many categories. When I was at Philips Healthcare, one of the things that was amazing, like, to learn about, is how these hospitals, in each city, are competing against each other for patients. Right?
Interesting.
I never thought of anything like that, but
totally.
Even in healthcare and doctors' offices, and name any industry, and there's so much more competition, especially with digital now, and there's so much more knowledge out there in forums, and if you're looking at restaurants, are you on Yelp, or how are you deciding where to hang out, or grab your next dinner. And that's really what we wanted to bring to the agency space, help people navigate this complex landscape and find the right match for them. Not just because they do branding, if you need branding, right? But because maybe they are a small agency, you can search by size. Maybe they fit within your budget ranges, like the type of work they do is along the lines of what you're looking to spend. Maybe you're looking for women-owned agency. All that stuff. We basically helped map that out and build a platform that helps people drill down on what's important to them. Industry expertise, like, do you want somebody in the automotive space? What are you looking for? And it helps you really get down to a known universe of agencies. And I think that saves people tremendous amounts of time, and that's what a lot of what we do is based on. It's just saving people time, helping them make decisions with more confidence than ever.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. So maybe people have gotten this or not, but I want to make sure they're 100% clear. I go to agencyspotter.com as a company looking for an agency. Walk me through the process. And then I want to cover as a company that wants to get added to the site right after that.
Yeah, so if I'm a marketer or a decision maker at a company, at a brand, you basically, the best thing to do is to log in. It's easy. You can do it with LinkedIn. And then you basically put in some parameters, right? If you know an agency name, you can look them up. And you'll be able to see if clients have reviewed them and see what they've said about them. If you know more about what you need, you don't know the agency name you're looking for, you can start with a service or a couple services that you're looking for. So maybe advertising and marketing strategy. Maybe you also need media in the mix, right?
Right.
Maybe you check those 3 boxes, and maybe you need an agency that's near you. So you add a location. Maybe you're looking for an agency in New York City or Boston,
Sure.
and you plug that in, and quickly you get results. And there's advanced search features, so you can add a budget range, right? You could select, I need somebody who specializes or has experience in aviation industry
Right.
or the consumer electronics industry, anything really. And you start to narrow it down using those filters very quickly. I think one of the, getting down to a set of, 50 agencies, it still sometimes can be intimidating for people,
Sure.
but you quickly can see who has reviews, right? And
Right.
go read those reviews and really see what other people like yourself have said about working with those agencies. And I think that's for agencies to differentiate themselves. That's a huge factor. When we launched the public platform about 6 years ago, there was a lot of resistance from agencies at the time. Oh, we'll never need to get customer reviews on a third party site. But
Interesting.
today, the reality is, if you don't have a review that's verified by a third party site, you're missing huge amounts of business. And
Sure.
people don't necessarily trust a testimonial that, a quote that you put on your own website as much as they do a
Yeah,
third party.
interesting.
So there's a lot of nuances there, but that's what helped that data and putting it in a easy to digest form that
Yeah.
narrow down your search and then reinforce who is a good agency to reach out to or talk to with what others other people are saying about them. That's human nature, right?
Totally. Well, no, the thing that I find interesting about what you guys do is so many people, whether it's still, I think they need to find somebody locally, and that may be true, but they might have better luck trying to find somebody that's maybe located across the country from them that specializes in their industry, because with the internet nowadays, well, not even hypothetically, like right now, you and I recording this episode are in two different countries, right? And so the internet has simplified things so much that why wouldn't you look for the best possible agency? And the geographic region doesn't matter anymore. Like before the internet, it very much mattered, because I remember I had a design teacher years ago that literally said when he was working, they would send print proofs with a cab to like drive the proof to the company. But nowadays, like,
Yep.
I just send you a quick email and as a PDF and say, hey, this is the proof of whatever I'm doing design on, and you can almost approve it instantly, right? And so
Yep.
what you guys are doing makes so much sense, in the sense that I can find somebody that's very relevant to what I'm looking for anywhere that will give me exactly what I'm looking for, right? And especially, like, sure, if you're in New York or LA, you may be able to find that, or even Atlanta, you might be able to find that locally. But if you're not in those big cities, or maybe you are, you want somebody that's specifically specialized in what you're looking for. Is that fair to
Yeah.
say?
It is fair to say, and there's so many barriers people have to like starting to look for an agency.
Mm-hmm.
I love data, so even though I didn't go in biomedical engineering and I didn't love calculus, I still love data, and I respect research, and we try and bring that data to the marketplace. And so one of the things that we've learned is people sometimes are afraid they can't afford an agency, right? Well, if you're sitting in New York and you're looking for an agency in New York, but you have like really, really small budget, cost of living might be too high for you to afford somebody locally. Maybe you may still be able to find, but now you can open up those geographic boundaries, right, and find somebody at the right price point for what you need to get done. Now, you can't, there's some services that like you're going to get what you pay for, right?
Sure.
But there are other things where, you really, maybe you just need something really simple. It's very straightforward, and you need an agency that can deliver.
Yeah, fair.
And I think so there's like high-end stuff, there's mid-tier stuff, there's,
Sure.
more like production stuff, and just liberating that data and making it easier for people to access what they need when they need it, and be more confident in who they're starting to do work with. I think it's a huge, removing barriers and saving people time, so that people can get on to doing great work, right? And connecting with their own customers.
Yeah, well, and this is a bit of a tangent, and I'll bring it back after, but it seems to me, I've been a designer my whole career for a long time. It seems to me that the most important thing nowadays, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is finding somebody or a team of people, or maybe both, that truly understands your industry or the web or whatever platforms you're really trying to target, because it's really easy to find a really good designer or developer, but actually finding somebody that's passionate about your industry or understands your industry or understands the technology stack that you're using is really, really tricky. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
It is. I mean, it is still a human decision. You need to talk to the people, and get to know them before you make a decision. We definitely don't, get you down to one agency and say, go work with this one agency, right? We want you to actually engage and talk to the agency, because everybody has different needs, right? Yeah, you're right. Like sometimes it is about, a certain level of expertise in a certain very niche industry, or, being able to come up with a big idea for the next advertising campaign that's going to help you grow your brand tremendously, right, out there in the marketplace. But sometimes it's also, there's many people that it's like, yes, I want really good work, but my number one driver is I want a partner who is very responsive and can meet my challenges when we're in a certain season to turn things around quickly. So there's a lot of variety. Every company, every person in that company, and every industry is so different. What they need and what a great partner to them looks like.
Yeah, fair. So if I'm an agency, how do I get on your platform?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You just you go on, log in, and you'll see add my agency at the very top. Fill out the form, and once you filled it out, you can start building an unpublished portfolio right away. And then our team reviews those and will approve them. We do have a minimum threshold, so if you're an independent contractor, there's a lot of other sites out there for you. We really try to look for people who have been in business for a year, who have a couple full-time founders or full-time staff that are have a vision to grow into something bigger, right?
No,
so it's relatively easy. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious then, how do you guys monetize the platform?
Well, that's, we've talked a lot about the public side of the platform, and so agencyspotter.com, that's kind of what it is. And we monetize, similar to many other review sites. Agencies basically can be on there for free, but they can pay to show up a little higher in search results or have a few more services. We still cap it. We've learned from a lot of the decision makers out there that they don't trust an agency necessarily if the agency says they do like 20 things, that they think they're awesome at 20 things and they're only a 20-person shop, right?
Okay.
So we did put a cap on, an agency needs to choose 5 services that they're great at. Those are the services you're going to be found for. You can have secondary services. So once somebody finds you for what you're great at, they can see the other things that you do and how you can support them in a more holistic way.
Sure.
But that's kind of the way we monetize, and we help those agencies get out there in front and connect with decision makers that way. On the private side of our platform, we have a product that helps the really big brands and solves the problem that I had when I was at Coke that we were talking about earlier.
Sure.
Where we bring a kind of a version of Agency Spotter that's a private version for those big brands.
Okay.
And helps them navigate the agency space, review internally, see who in my company has worked with this agency before. And, even we're integrating with systems like, payment systems and
Sure.
legal systems, so that the marketer now just has to go to this one place,
Sure.
not only to find an agency, but to start work with them, to start
Nice.
a statement of work or start a purchase order, things like that. So it's a very, big companies are pretty complicated.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of simplifying that experience for all the marketers and subject matter experts who are, working with agencies day in, day out, instead of remembering, 20 different, portals they need to go to start work with an agency. They can just go to one place and have a very simple experience that is rewarding and gets them, gets the agency doing the work rather than ties everybody's hands and everybody knows what they need to get done to start that.
No, that makes total sense. I totally get that. So you guys are about to publish a trends report. What exactly is that, and why is that super important? Because I think it's super important, but I want the listener to understand that as well.
Yeah, so there's lots of different marketing trends reports out there. We put out one annually, and we're always adding new facets to it.
Okay.
What's different about ours is that we're basing it, a lot of the insights, on what decision makers are actually searching. So,
okay, interesting.
We know every year, for the last 6 years, advertising has been the number one search term, right, in service.
Okay, interesting.
But there's lots of nuances about that.
Sure.
Advertising is actually losing ground every year, right?
Yeah.
What is it losing ground to? Are there services that are, for the last 6 years have been declining? Are there some that are rising? And do they align with, the hot trends, the things you read about, right? So bringing that data to bear on what, you might hear a lot about AR, VR, but is it really what people are searching for and buying?
Oh, interesting.
At what volume, right? Things like that.
Sure.
That, may be a buzzword, but is it actually, is the market really ready for it, and are they buying it at the same rate as some of the other services? So
Sure.
I think it helps marketers, especially if you're a subject matter expert, it helps you understand where your area of expertise might be in demand with agencies.
Sure.
And there may be many agencies who can help you, and where it might be a bit more niche and still developing and or even possibly defining. So we help you navigate some of those things. Sure. And pair it with a lot of the other data that other people put out.
Yeah. No, that's actually really quite interesting, because I know a year ago, January, I know we're into February at this point, but VR was the hot thing, at least on the West Coast, right? And this year, it's not so hot at all. And if you go by the media, there's been a bunch of VR companies that have closed their doors and shut down, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're an agency that decided to pump a ton of money in that space, or client, sorry, well, both really, you may or may not be around based on, or you might have had a hard year, right? Because you tried to ride that trend or you didn't ride that trend. So, and obviously it seems to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that different parts of the country obviously adopt things quicker than others, but there's certain things that if you watch the hotspots in a country, you can watch their trends and you're like, well, that trend's really hot right now, but like, is that going to be hot in 6 months? Maybe, maybe not. Or what's your thought on that whole kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think we definitely serve as kind of a guidepost there in helping people kind of evaluate some of those like hot or not like trends.
Yeah.
And are they going to stick around and become, real and materialize? I think the other thing too that we've learned over the years is, services like user experience design, right?
Yeah.
It was hot for a number of years and really right up at the top. And now, it's declined for a few years in a row. But we've learned that that's not because people aren't demanding great user experience. It's because they expect it to be baked in if you're buying any service, right? So there's also things like that, just like you were saying, there's people adopted user experience design like early on, like early adopters, right? For really playing on that and capturing large shares of the market because of it. But now it's become kind of more mainstream and it's baked in.
Yeah, it's expected.
So we also break that down. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Because, I think the simplest example I can think of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or maybe give me a better example, but since Apple launched the iPhone, people expect a good experience on their mobile phone, either in Safari or Chrome or Firefox, right? Like if they have to pinch to zoom around your website and it's not optimized for the iPhone, people get angry, right? And so that's a simple example of if you haven't optimized, and I know Google penalizes you now, but that's within the last couple of years, but there's been these huge companies that have basically set a standard, to your point, to prove your point, that people just expect it, right? Like it's not even a question when they're looking for something. They're just like, well, of course it's going to work on a smartphone or a tablet because that's been the industry standard for a number of years now, right? And if you're not doing the industry standard, you have some catching up to do, and if you don't catch up, you may or may not be around, right? But it's nice to have your report to actually validate, should I be doing VR or is that just like a trend that became and gone? Because the perfect example is kind of like the 3D TV, right? If you would have went after the 3D TV market a few years ago, you'd probably be out of business at this point.
Yeah. Well, and just to that point, I mean, there's definitely things on the digital realm. There's also things like path to purchase.
Okay,
whether you're on e-commerce, or whether you have a physical store, right? There are agencies that are great at helping you with shopper marketing and the experience that you have in those different places to help remove barriers so that the path to purchase is clean and you have clear ways to kind of entice people and get them to make a decision and reduce shopping cart abandonment, whether you are a physical store and the abandonment happens because your lines are too long, or you're a digital e-commerce platform and it's because of some other user experience or marketing barrier that is in place. Removing that stuff drives real economic gains for companies and creates happy consumers, right? Happy shoppers. And all that kind of stuff is, so important to you. If that's an area you're in, or it's important to your brand, it just creates a much better experience. And sites like Amazon, even, right? Like in the early days, Amazon felt a little clunky, but they were pumping huge amounts of dollars into understanding, that click through and how to optimize things. And now it's still, might not be as sexy of a site as some of the smaller e-commerce plays.
Totally.
But for the volume of stuff that they're selling and how fast you can get to a lot of things, it is still quite a feat and pretty impressive.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I think just to ride on the Amazon example, I think some of the next big innovations are going to be bringing technology back into the physical world. And I think the perfect example of that is Amazon doing their Amazon Go stores. I know they're in Seattle and I think a couple other physical locations now where you literally just like pick a product off the shelf because you scanned in when you walked into the store. It knows which items you picked off the shelf. And then you walk out of the store. You don't actually physically go to a cashier. It just automatically bills your credit card and you get a receipt. And so I think some of the biggest innovation is actually going to be leveraging technology back into the physical world, right? And having designers and agencies solve those problems is very, very challenging and very much needed at this point, right? And to touch on kind of your user experience design, that is very much relevant to trying to make things easier for people. Nobody likes waiting in line for anything. And Amazon seems to have solved that. And I know other companies are implementing that. I'm just trying to use Amazon as a good example that I think a lot of people have probably heard of. But there's so much innovation to be done still on and offline or a combo of both. And I think what you guys are doing at Agency Spotter to allow people to search and filter and find the agencies that are playing in their space makes a lot of sense and saves people a ton of time and money. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you could even go on the platform and search by, projects and campaigns that have been done in different, service areas. So you can actually judge, look at the work and see who does good work that way as well. A lot of creative directors like that. But to play on the shopping thing, in way back, I'm dating myself, but in 2003, I actually at Philips Design did a lot of future of shopping research and published white papers, patents, whatever.
Interesting.
But we predicted all the things that Amazon's doing, like they were already predicted, and we were way early. But it's kind of an interesting point. Like if you had invested back in those technologies, you probably would have went bust as a startup, right?
Yeah.
Or even big companies, would have wasted a lot of money and it would have sat on a shelf somewhere.
Sure.
But now, I think the physical world, the digital world, things are coming together, and that creates tremendous opportunities, not only for the customer experience and, retailers, but it creates amazing opportunity for the companies when they're thinking about how to think about their brand, their next campaign for advertising. Those are huge points of differentiation. Like you were saying, customers want this. They want to be able to just pick something up and walk out of the shop and not have to queue up in a line and wait, for the person in front of them who's being slow to get out of the way. They can just leave, right? And they, it charges automatically. I think that there's a lot of new ways to talk about that stuff and differentiate your brand, your store, your experience, whether you're in the physical world or online.
No, I 100% agree. The other thing that I want your thoughts on is the agency, as we've kind of known it, I think is not dying off, but if you don't evolve as an agency and stay kind of relevant and current, you will die off. Do you agree with that, or do you think that's kind of harsh?
No, I mean, I think it is harsh, but I think it's reality, right?
Sure.
Like, it's kind of like keep up, or get out of the way.
Yeah, interesting.
And the market, if you're big enough, right? Like how big you are sometimes helps you keep momentum longer.
Sure.
Right. And you can kind of plow your way through, but eventually, enough of parts of your business are chipped away.
Sure.
Your rolling stone kind of turns into a pebble and, you're left looking around like, well, what do we do now?
Sure.
So I think that the ones, whether you're a newer agency or an agency that's been around forever, reinventing yourself, not just in words, but in how you go to market and the expertise you bring to challenge your customers and drive value and not overhead. I think it's huge, a huge part of how the agency landscape will continue to evolve. And, we've seen a lot of the big brands, the big agencies, starting to merge some of their agencies and come up with new kind of combined names and things like that to try and stay ahead of things or catch back up. But at the end of the day, there are more agencies being created every year than there are those shutting their doors or merging with others. And so, in lots of different ways, the piece of the pie, even if it's growing and, marketing, the spend in marketing has been growing for the last 4 years for the most part in most industries. And, it's getting bigger, but the number of agencies is way increasing at a much faster rate. So the pie is getting divided up in lots of new ways. And how you capitalize on that as an agency and how you manage your budget as a brand can really help or hurt you.
No, that makes sense. So I'm curious to know, where does Agency Spotter go in 2019 and beyond, without kind of giving away anything? But where do you guys kind of see yourself going in 2019?
I think you'll see us a lot more flexing our muscle on the private side of the platform.
Okay.
But I think it's really creating an ecosystem, right? So even if we are helping these really big brands navigate their own internal landscape of agencies and partners, that feeds back to the public platform in many different ways and enriches the data there as well. So I think you'll see us continue to forge ahead and provide new insights and new ways to think about and evolve and find the right partner for you. Whether you're at a big brand or whether you need a new partner and you're using the public platform.
No, that makes a lot of sense, man. But we're kind of coming to the end of the show, so let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys and any other links you want to mention.
Sure. AgencySpotter.com. That's our website. If you navigate to the report section, you'll be able to get to the trends report.
Perfect.
We put that out every year. We're on Twitter at Agency Spotter, and you can also find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. We're pretty active on there. Appreciate you having me.
Of course, man. I really appreciate you taking the time of your day to be on the show. Look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
You too. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.